It was supposed to be just another breathtaking afternoon at Ocean Wave Marine Park, a place where dreams danced on the water's surface, where children clutched ice creams and pressed their faces against the glass, waiting for the moment when the great black and white giant would leap from the depths and crash back into the sea with a splash that could drench the first few rows. But on that day, no one could have imagined the haunting turn of events that would follow. If you're here listening now, stay until the very end, because the story of Jessica Radcliffe isn't just about tragedy, it's about love, sacrifice, and a message that could change the way you see the world forever. And before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard. Jessica Radcliffe was not just a trainer. She was the heartbeat of the marine park. At 28 years old, with sun-browned skin and a smile that could make strangers feel like lifelong friends, she had dedicated the last decade of her life to working with the Orcas. Her colleagues would often say, if the Orcas could speak, they'd call Jessica their sister. She had an uncanny ability to understand them, the twitch of a dorsal fin, the shift in an eye, the subtle vibration in the water before a mood change. Her favorite partner was a massive, 20-year-old male named Kaiko. He weighed over 6 tons, yet in Jessica's presence, he was as gentle as a kitten. They had a bond people compared to magic, a silent conversation no one else could hear. But behind that magic was a truth few saw. Jessica knew Kaiko wasn't truly free. Born in captivity, he had never tasted the open ocean. She often stayed late after shows, sitting by the edge of his pool, whispering about the waves beyond the walls, as though he understood. Her love for him wasn't just as a performer's partner, it was the love of someone who saw a soul caged. She had been quietly pushing the park's board for years to approve a rehabilitation plan that could one day let Kaiko live in a sea sanctuary. The management smiled politely but saw Kaiko as their star, the ticket seller, the face on the billboards. On that late summer day, the stands were full. The show was billed as Keiko's Grand Splash, a performance highlighting Jessica and Keiko's trust. The crowd roared as she dived gracefully into the tank, Kaiko slicing through the water toward her like a torpedo of muscle and power. He surfaced, sending up a rainbow of spray, then dove deep with her clinging to his back. The music swelled. Cameras flashed. But halfway through the routine, something changed. Witnesses later said they saw Keiko's movements stiffen. He surfaced once, slapping the water with his tail in a way Jessica recognized instantly, not part of the show. She tried to signal to the safety crew, but they didn't understand the urgency. To the audience, it looked like just another trick. Kaiko dived sharply, pulling Jessica down with him. She was an expert swimmer, but the speed and depth were overwhelming. Trainers later said Kaiko wasn't trying to harm her, he was agitated, confused, and overwhelmed by noise and flashing lights. Yet in those terrifying moments, Jessica didn't fight him with panic. She kept stroking his side, speaking to him through the water in the only way she knew: calm, soft, trusting. By the time they surfaced again, she was struggling to breathe. The rescue team dove in, but it was too late. Jessica slipped under the surface one last time, her hand brushing Keiko's massive jaw. When they finally pulled her out, the crowd was silent. The music had stopped. The ocean blue tank suddenly felt like a prison, not a stage. Her death shook the world. News stations replayed the footage on loop. The marine park closed for a week in mourning, but Jessica's family made one thing clear: they didn't want her remembered for how she died, but for what she lived for. And so they took her cause, the dream of giving Kaiko and others like him a life beyond the walls, and made it their mission. 2 years later, after relentless public campaigns, petitions signed by millions, and funding from unexpected places, including celebrities who had once been silent, Kaiko was moved to an ocean sanctuary. It wasn't the wild, but it was vast, open, and alive with tides, fish, and the calls of other orcas in the distance. The first day they opened the gate from his transport pen, he swam out slowly, turning his head toward the horizon. Those watching swore they saw him pause, almost as if waiting for someone to swim beside him. Maybe, in a way, Jessica always would. Jessica Radcliffe's story is not just about the risks of working with wild animals in captivity, it's about devotion, about believing in something bigger than yourself, even when it costs everything. If you take one thing away from her life, let it be this: love is proven not in comfort, but in sacrifice. And maybe, just maybe, the truest freedom is not for us to keep, but to give away. If Jessica's story touched you, hit that like button so more people can hear it. Subscribe for more real stories that remind us of our shared humanity, and share this video because someone out there might need to be reminded that even in tragedy, beauty and change can rise from the waves. In the weeks after Jessica's death, the marine park's walkways felt different. The colorful banners with smiling trainers and leaping orcas now seemed like ghosts of a time that had vanished overnight. Parents still brought their children, but conversations were quieter, eyes lingered on the empty trainers platform, and no one could ignore the shadow over the place. Kaiko was kept out of the public eye, his tank roped off from visitors. The trainers who fed him said he was restless, circling the pool for hours, sometimes pressing his head against the glass as if waiting for Jessica's familiar voice to call him again. Her closest friend at the park, Daniel Ruiz, found it impossible to step into the tank arena. He had worked alongside Jessica for years, watched her pull late-night shifts just to sit with Kaiko when he refused to eat, watched her fight with management over his living conditions, watched her get shut down time after time but never give up. After the funeral, Daniel made a quiet vow at her graveside, "I'll finish what you started, Jess." The fight wasn't easy. The park executives were unwilling to let go of their most valuable animal. They painted Jessica's death as an unfortunate accident, not a symptom of deeper issues. But Daniel, along with Jessica's younger sister Emily, began gathering everything they could: Jessica's notes, recordings, her plans for the sea sanctuary. They contacted marine biologists, animal welfare advocates, and eventually a documentary crew. As word spread, Jessica's story caught the public's heart. The video of her last show, once just a tragic clip, became a rallying point. People weren't just mourning her anymore, they were asking why Kaiko, and others like him, were still trapped in tanks. Her parents, who had once been quietly supportive but never outspoken, stepped forward. In interviews, Jessica's mother said something that pierced the nation's conscience. "Jessica always told me, Mom, an orca's heart is as big as a human's, they just can't speak our language. So I have to be their voice. I guess now it's our turn to speak for her." Months turned into a year. Petition signatures climbed into the millions. Donations poured in from unexpected corners, from school children pooling their lunch money to a retired Navy captain who had seen orcas in the wild and knew the difference between freedom and performance. Finally, under mounting public pressure and facing declining attendance, the Marine Parks Board relented. Kaiko would be moved to a specially built coastal sanctuary in Iceland, a vast expanse of ocean enclosed by natural barriers where he could feel the tides, hunt live fish, and hear other orcas calling in the distance. The transfer day was bittersweet. As the transport crane lifted Kaiko into a massive, water-filled stretcher, Daniel walked alongside, his hand brushing the orca's side one last time in the only language Kaiko knew: touch. "You're going home now," he whispered, though neither of them truly knew what home meant for a creature who had never been there. When the sanctuary gates opened, Kaiko hesitated for a moment, scanning the horizon. The water was colder, the air richer with salt, the sounds deeper and wilder. And then he swam forward, slow at first, then faster, until he vanished into the shimmer of the sea. Those watching were silent, some wiping away tears. Daniel swore that just before Kaiko disappeared, he turned slightly in the water, as if looking back. In that brief moment, it was easy to imagine he wasn't alone, that somewhere, just beyond the edge of sight, Jessica was swimming beside him, her laughter mixing with the cry of the waves. Her story became more than a tragedy. Schools began teaching about marine conservation in her name. Donations funded more sanctuaries. And every time someone asked why it mattered, Emily would say the same words Jessica had once told her: "Because freedom isn't a gift we take, it's a gift we give." If you're still here listening, remember, some dreams outlive the dreamer. Jessica's did. If her story moved you, click that like button so more people hear it, subscribe so you never miss stories that matter, and share this video, because somewhere, another voice needs to be heard before it's too late.